Welcome all of you. I am Rosalind Mishra. Welcome to today's class of AKTU MOOCs lecture on the subject of environmental sciences. In today's class, we shall be dealing with introduction, structure and function of aquatic ecosystem. We know very well, we have also discussed in our previous classes about the types of ecosystem. They can be divided into terrestrial and aquatic ecosystem. Now, in all the previous classes, we have completed discussing about terrestrial ecosystem, the different types of terrestrial ecosystem. In today's class, we shall be dealing with the aquatic ecosystem. By aquatic, I mean just the fresh water and the marine. So, there are two types of aquatic ecosystem, freshwater and marine. Okay. So, in today's class, we will be dealing with the freshwater ecosystem. Before that, let us first understand what is an aquatic ecosystem. Aquatic ecosystems deal with biotic community and abiotic components. In terrestrial ecosystem, carbon dioxide and oxygen are present in gaseous forms, whereas in the aquatic ecosystem, these are available in the dissolved states, wherein the aquatic ecosystems has the similar elements, but unlike gaseous state, they are present in they are present in the dissolved states. Depending upon the quality and nature of water, the aquatic ecosystems are characterized into freshwater ecosystem, marine ecosystem and estuarine ecosystem. Global water covers about 3/4 of the earth's surface, either as fresh water where salt content is less than 0.5% or as saline water where the salt content is more than 3.5%, or as brackish water where the salt content is intermediate between fresh water and saline water. On the basis of the salt content, aquatic ecosystems can be divided into saline water bodies, fresh water bodies or estuarine water bodies. The salt content of the fresh water body is very low, always less than 5 parts per 1000. As against this, the water body containing salt concentration equal to or above that of the sea water, that is 35 parts per 1000 or above, are called as saline water bodies or marine water bodies. Seas and oceans of the world comes under this marine water bodies. Estuaries and brackish water bodies have salt contents somewhere in between 5 to 35 parts per 1000. Because of their salt content, estuaries and oceans bear different kinds of organisms. It is on this basis that aquatic ecosystems are categorized into freshwater ecosystems, for example, lakes, ponds, swamps, pools, springs, streams and rivers. These are all the examples of freshwater ecosystem. Marine ecosystem, if we talk about, then they contain shallow seas and open oceans. They are the marine ecosystem. Next, if we talk about brackish water ecosystems, they deal with estuaries and salty marshes. Example, mangrove swamps and forests. Now, let us see the classification of aquatic organisms. The organisms in the aquatic ecosystems are unevenly distributed. That can be classified on the basis of life forms or location into 5 different groups. Number 1, Neuston. These are unattached organisms which live at the air and water interface, such as floating plants and several types of animals. Some spend most of their lives on top of this air and water interface, such as, for example, water striders, and while others spend most of their time just beneath the air water interface and obtain most of their food within the water bodies, example, beetles and back swimmers. After Neuston, let us talk about periphytons. These are organisms which remain attached or clings to stems and leaves of rooted plants or substances emerging above the bottom mud, usually sessile algae, and their associated groups of animals fall in this category. The third category is planktons. This group includes both microscopic plants and animals. By microscopic plants, I mean phytoplanktons, and animals, I mean zooplanktons. They are found in all aquatic ecosystems except certain swift moving waters. The locomotory power of the planktons is limited, so that their distribution is controlled largely by currents in the aquatic ecosystems. Planktons are divisible into plants known as phytoplanktons and animals known as zooplanktons. Most phytoplanktons and zooplanktons are capable, however, of at least some movement. Certain zooplanktons are extremely active and move relatively large distances. Considering their small size, but they are so small that their range is still controlled by the water currents. After Neuston, periphytons, planktons, the fourth category is nectons. This group of animals are also known as swimmers. The nectons are relatively large and powerful, as they have to overcome the water currents. When compared to planktons, the nectons are larger and more powerful. They have the ability to overcome the water current. The animals ranges in size from swimming insects which may be only about 2 millimeter long to the largest animals that have lived on earth, namely the blue whale. So, all of these creatures come under the category of nectons. The fifth category is benthos. The benthos or the benthic organisms are those found living in or on the bottom or the benthic region of the water mass. They exhibit a variety of adaptations to the environment. The reason for this is that the bottom is a more heterogeneous habitat than either the open water on the surface or the water lying in the middle. This diversity is reflected in the organisms. Practically, the aquatic ecosystems contain well developed benthos. The adaptation of the organism in the benthic community reflects the composition of the bottom, its stability or tendency to shift, and its depth. Now, after discussing about the organisms found in an aquatic ecosystem, we move on towards discussing in detail about fresh water ecosystems. freshwater ecosystem covers only about 0.8% of the earth's surface. They contain 0.009% of its total water. Freshwater ecosystem contains 41% of the world's known fish species. Aquatic ecosystems perform many important environmental functions. For example, they recycle nutrients, they purify water, they attenuate floods, they recharge groundwater and provide habitat for wildlife. Aquatic ecosystems are also used for human recreations and are very important to the tourism industry, especially the coastal regions. There are three basic types of freshwater ecosystem. What are they? Number one, the lentic ecosystem, the loitic system and the wetlands. So, now let us look one by one and try and understand these three types of aquatic ecosystems. Number one, talking about the lentic or the slow moving water. They include pools, ponds and lakes. The lotic systems or the rapidly moving water include streams and rivers. And the third system, which is wetland areas, where the soil is saturated with water or inundated for at least a part of the time, are known as wetlands. So, this picture depicts a freshwater ecosystem and a few organisms which can be found in the freshwater ecosystems. Now, talking about the first system, which is lentic system or a slow moving system, pond ecosystem. Pond ecosystem, it is a small freshwater aquatic ecosystem. Water in a pond is stagnant. They may be seasonal in nature. Receiving enough water during rainy season, ponds are usually shallow water bodies which play a very important role in the lives of villagers, where most of the activities are around the pond. They contain several types of algae, aquatic plants, insects, fishes and birds. The ponds are, however, very often exposed to tremendous anthropogenic or human generated pressures. For example, they are mainly polluted by human activities. So, here you can see a pond ecosystem containing a large number of flora and fauna. Next, we move on further. Moving on to lake ecosystems. Lakes are usually big freshwater bodies. They are huge freshwater bodies with standing water. Okay. Even these are lentic systems. They have shallow water zone. They have a shallow water zone called the littoral zone, where the water is shallow. This is the shallow water zone. They have an open water zone where the effective penetration of the solar light takes place. This is called the limnetic zone. This is called the limnetic zone. Okay. Here, as you can see, the water is shallow, hence it is called littoral zone. The next region where the water is a little deep and light can penetrate through this water, is called the limnatic zone. That is, the solar light can enter into the water. A deep bottom area where light or penetration of light is negligible is known as profundal zone. So, here where the light is negligible is a profundal zone. In this zone, the solar light's penetration is very difficult or is minimal. Now, after discussing about the zones in the lake, that is littoral zone, limnatic zone and the profundal zone, depending upon the shallow or the depth of water and the ability of the solar light's penetration, lakes are divided into 3 types, okay, or the regions in a lakes are divided into 3 categories: limnatic zone, littoral zone and the profundal zone. Now, let us look into the classification of lakes. How can lakes be classified? Lakes of the world exhibit a great diversity of shape, size and combination of properties. However, on the basis of nutrient status and primary productivities, they can be divided into 3 categories. Okay, what are those categories? Number 1, oligotrophic lakes. Oligotrophic lakes are nutrient poor lakes. The nutrients in this lake is pretty poor. The second category is eutrophic lakes, also known as nutrient rich lakes. The third category is mesotrophic lakes or the medium nutrient lakes. So, depending upon the types or of nutrients present in the lakes, lakes can be classified into oligotrophic, where the nutrients are very poor, eutrophic, where the nutrient is rich in the lake, and mesotrophic, that is a combination of nutrients. With the help of this diagram, we can see the different types of lakes. Eutrophic lakes, here zones can also be, this is oligotrophic lake where nutrient is poor, okay, you can see the nutrient is poor, sparse fish population, low concentration of nutrients and planktons. Next we have eutrophic lakes which are rich in nutrients, high concentration of nutrients and planktons, rich or dense fish population. So, these are the 2 categories of lakes. The first one wherein oligotrophic or nutrient sparse lakes, the second one is eutrophic or which is nutrient rich. Alright. So, now we will move on further. Let us talk about the producers in the lake. Let us talk about the flora and the fauna of the lake. Producers are macrophytes, rooted plants partly or completely either submerged or floating, and phytoplanktons which are minute floating or suspended lower plant varieties. Consumers in a lake consists of heterotrophs which depend on the organic food manufactured by green plants. Consumers can be divided into benthos, animal associated with living plants, and bottom forms which feed upon the plant remains lying at the bottom of the pond. They are called detrivores. Example, fish, insect larvae, beetles, mites, crustaceans, etc. Zooplanktons feed on phytoplanktons like protozoans, secondary consumers and tertiary consumers. The last variety is decomposers. They are macro consumers. They bring about decomposition of complex dead organic matter of both plants and animals into simple forms. They are also called as macro consumers. Moving on to river ecosystem, they are flowing water ecosystem or the lotic system, in which all the living forms are especially adapted to different rate of flow. The community of flora and fauna of rivers depend on the clarity, flow, oxygen content as well as the nature of their beds. The river can have a sandy, rocky or muddy bed, each type having its own species of plants and animals. The major difference between the lotic and the lentic system is the lotic or the flowing water habitat include rivers, streams, brooks, etc. The outstanding features of such habitat is the continuously flowing water, which molds the characteristic of the water bed. In order to differentiate between the lotic and the lentic habitats, let us see how rivers differ from lakes that represent the lentic habitat. The rivers have a continuous one directional flow with the entire volume of flow in a unidirectional manner. In large rivers, the flow may be from one climatic zone to another. The volume of river water keeps changing, causing variation in its velocity. The physical, chemical and biological conditions of a river gradually changes with the distance along the main channel in a definite direction. The material transported or eroded at any point inspirated by them downstream with no support for return. In rivers, prolonged stagnation is not seen at all. Rivers in comparison to lakes depends more on surrounding lands for nutrients. Two most important points which we need to remember are, rivers are open or heterotrophic system, whereas lakes are closed or self-contained systems. Nutrients in lakes may be used several times, wherein in the rivers at any point plants and animals must avail of temporarily available nutrients. River is divided into three parts: upper or the mountain course, middle course and the lower course. Upper or the mountain course, middle course and the lower course. The biotic components in a river are mainly producers, includes phytoplanktons, consumers like primary consumers, these are herbivores and feed directly on the producers. Secondary consumers, these are carnivorous fishes. Tertiary consumers, these are top carnivorous fishes, and decomposers, these are microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, etc. Abiotic components include variable dissolved oxygen content, light and temperature. These are the abiotic factors affecting the course of a river. Here, with the help of these pictorial representation, we can see the different types of biotic components in a river, namely freshwater limpet, water penny, caddisfly larvae, mayfly, water spiders. Similarly, mayflies, burrowing dragonfly, planktons, diatoms, snails, clams, etc. These are the various organisms found, or the biotic components found in a river. So, with this we have almost tried and understood about the different components of a freshwater ecosystem. A freshwater ecosystem, as we have already discussed about, consists of rivers and lakes and ponds. Okay. In one form, rivers are open systems, whereas the lakes are closed systems. So, rivers have a wide variety of organisms, and lakes, in rivers wide variety of organisms can survive in scanty amount of nutrients, whereas in lakes they get nutrients all the year around and it is not restricted or constricted. So, with this we finish our today's class. Thank you.